Welcome to EventUp, the place where people enthusiastic about events stay in the know on the latest trends within the events industry. Live, hybrid, and virtual experiences. From virtual events to conferences, award galas, and everything in between. Here's your host, Amanda Ma.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to EventUp Podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic that every marketer and leader can relate to, change. Joining us today is Michelle Aragon, a marketing and business growth executive with deep expertise at the intersection of brand, strategy, data, and demand generation. And honestly, I'm just going to call her a legend. You guys, I'm so excited she's here. And Michelle was formerly VP of Brand Marketing and Strategy at Spectrum Reach, where she led a major brand transformation connecting Spectrum Reach's multi-screen advertising products to what clients need now, as well as what's next. She's also held leadership roles at Magna Global in a cross-marketing industry and is passionate advocate for advancing women in leadership through her work with She Runs It, Chief, as well as other organizations. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I'm looking forward to a very insightful and fun conversation.
Thank you. All right, let's kick that off. So I'm just going to jump right in today, since you're
Let's do it.
No warm up for you.
I know.
In your experience, right, you've done really well for yourself. What is it when you think of events? Because that's our audience today. How can events serve really as a way to reset, inspire, and really connect people in this time of change?
Yeah, so what I've realized over the years in my marketing career, whether it's large scale national events or small intimate gatherings, is that events are catalysts. They pull us out of our routines and into moments of reflection and reconnection, almost like a mirror. I don't know how many times you've been at an event and you're listening to the content and you're just like, oh my gosh, I do that. Or, oh, this is perfect for me to take back to my team. Or, and so I love that mirror quality for, especially in times of change, because it really helps us see ourselves, our roles, our teams, and quite frankly, the possibilities. And so I truly believe that events are spaces where inspiration happens through conversation and connection.
Definitely. And you and I met in person. I think that's how it blossomed. I think if I just met you digitally, I'm sure it will be very pleasant. But I think that in real life connection just carries it that much further. Can you describe change as an opportunity of reinvention? How has that shaped your approach when it comes to whether it's professionally or even personally?
Yeah, I think from a marketer perspective, the best events have kind of evolved. They really blur the line between content, community, commerce now, and they're immersive, engaging both kind of like the head and the heart. And that's what creates that connection, right? What's really cool is experiential is a strong medium and it's really growing. And I think brands are realizing that experiences are the message, right? People kind of remember what they felt at an event, not necessarily what they were being sold. And that's how brands, both from a B2C and a B2B perspective, are really thinking about reinventing in what is a very transformative time in the marketing industry. And personally, as you mentioned, I'm currently navigating a career transition and kind of these moments of gathering, whether it's a dinner like the lovely dinner that we had last week, a conference, or even just a one-on-one meetup. And they are all opportunities to kind of reimagine what's next. I've met so many other people who are in the same situation as I am, navigating what's next. And I really like to kind of put my marketer hat on for the brief because I'm a classic marketer, but it's like, what's my purpose? Who's my audience? How do I want to show up? It's really the same personally and professionally when you think about, events. And events is a very broad term, but I think that's kind of the approach from both a professional and personal perspective.
And how about your mindset, right? Especially during transition, what mindset do you
Yeah.
find most valuable when navigating these periods of uncertainty?
I think I love the word curiosity. I think curiosity is really the way to kind of think about uncertainty, right? When you think about kind of uncertainty, some people go to maybe a place of fear. And so if you shift from fear to curiosity, I think that allows you to stay open to possibility, right? I mean, you can't control every outcome, but you can kind of control what you do about it and how you explore that uncertainty and exploring that with creativity and optimism. And so connection is really that currency of growth, and events are where that currency circulates.
And then how do you kind of continue to grow that currency? I love how the way you phrase that.
Yeah. Well, I think again, I feel like networking kind of has this bad rap, right? It's like everybody thinks, oh, I got to go to an event, I got to go to a conference, I got to network. And then it's like kind of awkward because people are like, what do I talk about? I just talk about my job, or like, because a lot of people, your identity is really wrapped into your role, and I think really leading with curiosity. So not just going to an event to kind of do the networking, but to
Mhm.
really engage with people and learn about them and proactively asking them questions about what do they find that's exciting, or like what was the coolest thing that you worked on, or like, people love to talk about themselves, and so you get to like learn so much about people. And that, I think, is again going back to the point of curiosity. That's how I think you have a great time connecting with people, and less so worrying about like, oh, I need to network with all these people because I need to get something out of it.
And I do believe in strategic networking, right? But you're
Of
right, like
course.
leading with curiosity. So it's a very different mindset walking in. And I feel like you are constantly, like you're pleasantly surprised if you come with the right mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and to your point about strategic, yes. I mean, I think you don't ever want to just like show up and unless you're like a rock star, you just show up and everybody like comes to
Yeah.
you, right? But yeah, of course, I think you want to be strategic about, okay, but coming from a place of like, what can I give to other people, right? Meaning the context that I know, or something that I heard that maybe is valuable or relatable or an interesting tidbit, or even how you can follow up with that person, as opposed to kind of, oh, I'm going to go in and just collect kind of information and then go and follow up with everybody on LinkedIn. And it's like, you got to kind of think about it strategically in an actionable sense, but also in a very like human way.
Yes. Because ultimately we're working with humans, right? Even though
Yes.
we're at companies, but we're working with humans. And I love that you're bringing the humanness side back.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. People love talking about themselves.
Of course.
That is such a good one. How about in terms of like, what's a recent project you have led that really stand out to you, and
Mm.
what were some of the key takeaways or lesson learned?
Yeah. So this one I think was a really good one. So I think it was back in June, a few months ago, I had a great opportunity to collaborate with the ANA, so Association of National Advertisers, they had this, it was the first of its kind live experiment at the B2B Masters of Marketing conference. And it was this 72-hour AI challenge where we created campaigns for two clients, EY and Plant Moran. And so there were participating teams that all went to that conference, and it included research, insights, creative development and production, media strategy and planning. And so we were all on site working together. And these were people from different companies. There was like 5 different companies coming together on behalf of these 2 clients. And so it was really cool to kind of look at that on site, go from brief to creative to media being on air in 72 hours, which was really like unheard of, because I think, the advertising process takes, months. And I think a lot of brand marketers, how do we kind of condense that process leveraging AI? And so it was really a unique opportunity to partner in such a collaborative way, number one, that you don't really get to do, and let marketers see how data storytelling come together like in real time. So it really provided an invitation to think about things differently in the advertising process, both tapping into AI, but always having that human talent in the room to guide it. And so for me, the lesson learned was people don't just want tools. And I know that the buzzword du jour is AI and AI as a tool, but they really want AI. And not only that, how it relates to, for instance, the marketing, the advertising, or whatever process. They want the context, the confidence, and the clarity of how it would work. And so that was a really cool project to be part of. I really loved it. And I think that the clients, like, we all enjoyed partnering together in that short period of time. It was almost like a hackathon, if you think about it. But it was unlike anything I had experienced at a marketing conference before. And it was really cool.
I love it. I think like out of the box thinking and activity, and like you said, like that collaboration, right? Just think of Michelle, but I don't know, 3,000 of you guys.
I mean, it was really cool because, there were a couple of companies. There was a company called Evidenza, a company called Brandlight, a company called Waymar, ourselves, Spectrum Reach, and then, like I said, the 2 clients, EY and Plant Moran. And so it was kind of like we all just kind of took a leap of faith, because we had no idea if it was going to work. We were like, we could totally this could be a disaster. But it was a great learning experience. And like I said, about really testing and pushing the boundaries of how to really do this in a way that's going to only continue to grow.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate that experience share. We love it when things go right. But how about in terms of like when things don't go as planned? What is kind of your process for pivoting or finding success anyway?
I mean, I feel like things are always shifting, right? The best laid plans, like they never go to plan. Although what I would say is kind of taking it back to what is the core insight and purpose, right? Because that's the one thing that theoretically shouldn't be shifting. And so once you anchor back to, well, what was that insight? What was that truth? Then you can kind of just like flex on everything else, right? So it's kind of less about, starting over, so to speak, completely, but kind of going back to basics, if you will. And then how do you then look at the pivot or the next steps in a more informed way? So, sometimes that process for pivoting is a good one, because when you started out, you might not have had a certain piece of information or something that might come along throughout or during the process. And so again, it's just kind of, how do you take it and how do you then make it better? And again, like I said, in a more informed way the next time around.
Take the lesson learned and apply it forward. Right.
Yeah, because like when you're in it, sometimes there's things that are just too late. And so you might not be able to make certain changes quickly. You might be able to make certain changes quickly. And I think that's always why I think you need to be thinking 2 steps ahead. And this is not just, me, but like the team is very important to like always be having, well, what is a contingency plan? Or what if this happens? What if that happens? And I think that needs to be happening at the kind of strategic brainstorming sessions. And then even as you have your plan, you need to say, okay, what if this, what if that, like you always need to be kind of scenario planning and have those kind of like go to next steps that you can like immediately implement. But like I said, sometimes you just have to ride the wave and take the hit and work on how to improve next time.
Yeah, and I also think like part of it where people like you are successful because you are taking some risk. So it's not always a rinse and repeat, right? Because that's how you really like push the boundary. So you're bound to come across some lesson learned and you just had to like, okay, I got this and apply it forward. Otherwise, you're always just doing the same thing because that's comfortable.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, and I think that there's a lot of companies that like to, follow well, if it's not broken, don't fix it, And so, but I think you always need to be pushing the envelope. You always need to be providing something new. Now, I think, in my opinion, I think we need to rethink the way we think about failure,
Mhm.
because failure isn't just failure like, oh, we failed and that wasn't good. I mean, nobody wants to fail, nobody sets out to fail. But the biggest lesson in failure is learning,
Mhm.
right? And it's
Yes.
like you can't learn if you don't fail. And so there's just no perfect. And that's how I think we need to think about things.
Ready to elevate your next event? Let's chat. Visit Innovate MKG to schedule a game changing conversation. I love what you said because I literally just went to an event last night and the speaker said, if, a lot of us as leaders, there are moments in time where we feel like, oh man, I feel like I failed. Right. And that is a normal feeling. They want to like normalize that. But also, it's like, kudos to you, right? The fact that you felt like that, because if you weren't feeling like that, you know what? You're not trying hard enough. You're not
That's true.
stretching yourself.
That's right.
So I
Yeah,
really resonated with that.
totally. I mean, like, sure, there's a lot of people that can just be content and doing things that are like, meh, that's okay. But then you don't always, if you don't take the risk, then you can't, you know, get what's on the other side of that. Right.
Exactly. From your perspective, how can we make marketing strategy and brand transformation work hand in hand with events?
I mean, I think that events are brand strategy. They're like brand strategy in motion, if you will. It's kind of like events are able to turn your brand narrative into a tangible experience. Because it's one thing to like have a message out in the marketplace, or like, like people don't always absorb it. But when you design an event that really reflects your brand's values, how you make people feel, what you stand for, you're really building that brand equity through emotion. And so, from a B2B perspective, it's how that storytelling can drive revenue, right? Marketers are really kind of trying to reimagine how does brand, data, and storytelling come together to drive business outcomes. And that's a place that I think people are still trying to figure things out right now. But those are really the things that you think about, because I think in the past it was like, oh, we would just do these kind of like one-off event activations that weren't always tied to kind of an always on brand strategy, right? Or how
Mhm.
it's laddering up more strategically to the objectives that the company or the brand is set forth. And so that's what you need to do, right? You need to make sure that you're kind of looking at measurement. You need to be thinking about how do they tie together? Like, how is it more of a series in other marketing channels, not just kind of the event activation?
That's so great. And then how about in terms of like any trends in particular you're excited about when it comes to using events as part of the broader marketing strategy, Michelle?
I mean, I think that again, events, you can kind of look at events multiple ways, right? It's kind of like there's large scale events, and then there's more kind of like intimate events. And like what I'm excited about is how do we figure out ways that we can scale those experiences to make them feel more personal, even when they're reaching kind of a lot of people. And I
Yeah.
think that, technology has changed, and AI, like these are providing opportunities to do that. Smaller format, high impact gatherings, I think, will always be the best in because it's less about spectacle and more about substance, right? And so, but there's room for both. Like it's not an either or. You just kind of need to know who, again, going back to what are you trying to say? Who is your audience? And then it's determined on is it a mass audience, one to many? Is it one to one? Is it one to few? How are you thinking about it? And then, like I said, going back to what I said about measurement, how are you thinking about it quantitatively, like meetings, leads, and then the qualitative, right? From a brand perspective, like what is the sentiment? What is the alignment? How is it connecting cross functionally across marketing, not just maybe what you're talking about or what, the events team might be focused on or the brand narrative might be working on? Like, how do you really integrate that and pull that together? I think the other thing, lastly, is again, I might have mentioned this earlier, is how do you take those event themes and make them more always on year round that extends that narrative both in person and then kind of in a 360 way through in an omnichannel capacity. And so for me, I think the best events aren't really just about like, well, who's at the event? It's really about how do people feel when they leave that event, right? Because when you bring that right energy, you bring that right intention together, whether it's large scale, small scale, you can really create something that moves people. And, sometimes that moves you, whether personally or with the brand, forward too.
I love it. And because how you make people feel is what they remember at the end of the day.
Mhm. Exactly.
For a while.
Exactly.
All right, switching gear a little bit. Outside
Mhm.
work, I know you're super fun and you love travel. Like, what role do music, food, or travel play to keep you
Oh.
inspired?
Oh my gosh. Well, they're my rituals. I mean, music is life for me. Like it sets my mood. It can immediately take me to a special moment or memory instantly, which I just love that about music. Food always brings people together to kind of connect and share stories about what's going on in their lives and work and whatever else. So it's just a great way to converse, right? And travel expands your perspective, right? I was just in Maui recently, and it's just, oh gosh, it's just such a magical place. I absolutely loved it there. This notion of the aloha spirit, it's so true. And it was really a reminder that, success in this life is really about showing up for others, celebrating life, and creating moments that matter along the way.
Creating moments that matter. I think that's going to stay with me for a while. I love that.
Yeah, and, like, I think that I mean, like, even that dinner that we had the other week, that was, like, a real moment that mattered. Like, I think
Mhm.
so you provided that opportunity for so many people, and, like, that was really around the concept of food, you know?
Yeah. And I know in addition to all the things we talk about, you're also very passionate about making a difference. You're on the board
Yeah.
of She Runs It. Like, can you share a experience where your personal values really connected with your professional work as well?
Yeah, actually I'm on the board of a it's called the Reisenbeck Philanthropies. I'm actually no longer on the board as She Runs It, but I formerly was on the board of She Runs It, formerly on the board of Step Up New York chapter. I was on a lot of boards and then I had to kind of like rein it in because it was just I had too much going on with work, but yes, during my time at Spectrum Reach, we had launched this program that's called the Pay It Forward program, and it's supporting small businesses. And how we were supporting those small businesses was providing advertising and creative support, mentoring, and educational resources. And it's been such a successful program. And that work really mattered to me deeply, especially for those small business owners that lack access and opportunity. A lot of people, it's like, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so it was really proof that you can drive business results and community impact at the same time. And that's the kind of marketing that I want to keep creating in a meaningful way.
Oh, so wonderful. And then if you weren't doing what you're doing now,
Oh,
what
geez.
is another path you could see yourself exploring? I don't know, like, I don't know. What is it? I'm trying to like,
Yeah. I mean, if I weren't a marketer, I'd
yeah.
say probably something that brings people together, again, going back to probably through something food, travel, and experiences. So I don't know, maybe a travel series, like, ha ha ha. I don't know. I've always believed that connection is really the ultimate outcome of great marketing. And that curiosity is the core of creativity. And, I'd still be doing what I love, which is building possibility by moving ideas forward. So I don't know what that means specifically, but but it would be something in that context. Yes.
Okay, so Food Network or Travel
I know.
Channel, if you're listening or tuning in or you have friends there, please drop them Michelle Aragon's contact. She's very interested.
I think I would be a great travel host.
I think so too. You're very dynamic in person, very charismatic. So I think your personality will shine through as well. And you need
Ah,
engagement, right? So it's
thanks.
not just, this goes beyond food and travel. So yeah, I could totally see it. I could see it. And then how about in terms of, we talked a little bit about the trajectory of your professional. Like, can you kind of walk us through, like, how did you get
Mm-hmm.
to where you are today? Is it linear path? Like, did you always know
No.
this is exactly what you wanted to do?
Well, I mean, I always wanted to be in advertising. And so I grew up in a very small town in Idaho, and I just always wanted to move to New York. This was back when, I wanted to work on Madison Avenue, and I went to college in Idaho, and I just thought, "Oh, this is what I want to do, work at an advertising agency." And I loved it. I did it for a while. I probably would not provide this advice. I kind of just like sold everything I owned and had like, 2 nickels in my pocket and moved to New York without a job. But I kind of landed on my feet, and this was kind of how I started piecing together that mosaic that I was saying. So like I worked at a promotional marketing company, like doing like in-store POS, shell, end cap designs, all of those things, which was really interesting. And then I shifted into what I had really done previously, which was working in a creative advertising agency. And so but it was very traditional, like doing television ads and out of home and print. And I really wanted, but this was back in the time where it was like social media was kind of turning into a marketing tool. And so I really wanted to understand digital marketing. And so I went and I worked at this digital innovation agency. That's how I was able to kind of like parlay into a role that I was a brand manager at Constellation Brands. And because people didn't quite understand digital marketing. And so that was fantastic. And then I decided to go do something else, and I was leading new business at a big, large agency. And then I actually did some strategic work with an experiential company, which was super fun. And then I'm like, what else did I do? I went to the media side. I was working at like you said, Magna. So I totally got to understand the media industry. And then ultimately I went to Spectrum Reach, where I was able to oversee, set a large remit of, all of our brand strategy, positioning, messaging, all of our advertising campaigns, all of our CRM, inbound, outbound marketing, our marketing communications, and our events and experiences. And so I could never have done that role if I didn't have all of those experiences along the way. And so, I think my going back to what you and I were saying earlier, I think people need to not think about things in a linear way. It's more about how am I building upon my skill set that is going to then allow me to have a more well-rounded perspective. And so now kind of my three best things are that, oh, not only can I think high level strategic, but I also know what it takes to execute because I went through it before. I understand full funnel end-to-end marketing from a brand perspective all the way to a performance demand gen perspective. And then, that's super important, right? In order you have to be, like I said, a data-driven marketer. That's just a must. And being able to prove out the value of marketing and how that really drives business outcomes.
Definitely. I mean, that full funnel. So essentially, you have your skill set is very much as a stack skill set. It's not a singular or linear, and but that's why it makes you very well rounded, and that's why
Yeah,
you're in the position that you are. You
let's
know,
call it full stack.
the full
Exactly. I'm a
stack.
full
Yeah,
stack
'cause
marketer.
in theory, right? There's some people they're just like, in theory, this is yeah, but you understand like what it takes to
Yes.
get the brand there. I think that's why you're more rounded. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that was my last question for you. Thank you so much for sharing all your
Yeah.
insights and stories with us. Michelle, this has been so inspiring. I love talking to
Aw.
other women leaders. I love how you really view transformation not as something to fear, but you really see it as an invitation to grow and
Mhm.
also reimagine what's possible. And for
Yes.
us, whether that's for ourselves, for our team, or for our audience. So from one woman to another, I just wanted to let you know, like, you really inspire me. And I hope everybody that's tuning in to this episode, that I'm sure it will also inspire them as well.
I appreciate that so much. Like that really means a lot. Thank you so much for having me. And to be honest with you, to your point, like, so if this inspires someone to create their own moment of reset, that's the best outcome I could ask for. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Michelle. Before we wrap up, I want to share something special from our team at Innovate Marketing Group. It's called the Experiential ROI Playbook. It's a practical guide to marketers who want to turn brand moments into measurable impact. Inside, we break down our 3-layer ROI framework, share real case studies like TikTok Beauty on Wrap, and outline the matrix that truly move the needle. You can download your free copy at innovatemkg.com and start planning your next activation with measurable results in mind. EventUp is powered by Innovate Marketing Group, your go-to partner for unforgettable events and experiences. Discover how we bring brands to life at innovatemkg.com. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave us a rating and review. It helps more listeners like you find the show and keeps the inspiration going.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time on EventUp.